The humans went quiet. Then the universe learned what true fear is. Part 1. The Silence Captain. Minho sat in his chair aboard the Wandering Star and watched the stars through the viewport. His ship was 3 weeks out from Earth, doing what human ships always did. They were exploring, scanning new worlds, and sending cheerful messages back home. Humans were always loud in space. They talked constantly, broadcasted music, shared jokes across light years, and never stopped making noise. That was about to change. The message came through on the emergency channel. Minho's second officer, Lieutenant Yuna, brought it to him with shaking hands. Her face was pale. "Captain, you need to see this. It's from Admiral Hyejin herself." Minho took the datapad and read. His jaw tightened with every word. The Freck Empire had made their demand. They wanted 15 human colony worlds as tribute, 15 worlds where millions of humans lived, worked, and raised families. The Rek said humanity had to surrender them or face total war. The worst part wasn't the demand. It was what came next. The Galactic Council had voted on it. 8 members voted yes. Only 2 voted no. The Council, which humanity had trusted for 200 years, had decided that giving away human worlds was acceptable. It was efficient. It prevented a larger war. "They voted to give us away," Yuna whispered. "Like we're nothing." Minho stood up slowly. He was a calm man, known for his easy smile and patience. But now his eyes were cold. "Get me a secure line to Earth. I need to speak with command." Across human space, the same message reached every ship, every station, and every colony. Ambassador Taehyung Lee stood in the council chambers, facing the 8 species who had voted against humanity. They looked at him with expressions that ranged from pity to indifference. They expected him to argue, to beg, to negotiate. Instead, Taehyung spoke 5 words. "We refuse. Don't follow us." Then he turned and walked out. The council members looked at each other, confused. Humans always talked. They always tried to find compromise. They never just left. Within 6 hours, something unprecedented happened. Every human voice in the galaxy went silent. Trade ships stopped broadcasting. Diplomats closed their embassies. Science vessels recalled to human territory. The thousands of communication channels that humans maintained, the constant chatter that had filled the space waves for 2 centuries, simply stopped. On Earth, Admiral Hyejin stood in the command center of the human defense fleet. Around her, officers worked in absolute silence. No one spoke unless necessary. Every screen showed human ships moving, but they weren't running away. They were moving into position. "Begin Protocol Midnight," she said quietly. Dr. Jiwoo worked in her laboratory on Mars, but she wasn't doing science anymore. She was reading through old military files, classified documents from before humanity joined the Council. Her specialty was supposed to be xenobiology, understanding alien life, but Jiwoo had another degree, one she hadn't used in 30 years. She had been a military strategist during the last war humanity fought. She pulled up maps of human territory and began marking them. Evacuation routes, weapon placements, kill zones. Her hands were steady, but her heart was heavy. She had hoped to never do this again. The Vrek Empire didn't understand the silence. Supreme Commander Thrak sat on his flagship and laughed when he heard that humans had gone quiet. "They're afraid," he told his officers. "They know they cannot win. They're hiding like prey animals before the hunt." The Rek had conquered 47 star systems. They were warriors bred for battle, proud of their strength. They saw humanity as soft, weak creatures who talked too much and fought too little. The silence only confirmed their beliefs. "Prepare the armada," Thrak commanded. "We'll take not 15 worlds, but 30. They've shown weakness and will exploit it." 3,000 Rek warships began moving toward human space. It was the largest military force assembled in a century. The galaxy watched nervously. Most species expected humanity to surrender once they saw this overwhelming force. A few hoped humanity would fight, if only to hurt Rek pride. None of them understood what was really happening. Captain Minho received his orders 2 days before the Rek fleet would arrive at the first human colony. He read them 3 times, making sure he understood. Then he called his senior staff together. "We're evacuating the outer colonies," he told them. "All 17 worlds in the outer rim. Every person, every animal, everything that can be moved. We have 48 hours. "That's impossible," his chief engineer said. "We can't move that many people that fast." "We can and we will," Minho said. His voice was hard now, nothing like his usual friendly tone. Because those worlds are about to become something else. Lieutenant Yuna understood first. Her eyes went wide. They're going to be the battlefield. We're choosing the ground, Minho nodded. We're not running. We're preparing. There's a difference. Across 17 worlds, human colonists received the evacuation order. They didn't panic. They didn't argue. They had all heard about the council vote. They knew what it meant. Every human alive remembered the stories their grandparents told about the time before the council, when humanity stood alone. They packed quickly and boarded the transport ships. Within 36 hours, worlds that had been full of life were empty. Cities stood abandoned. Farms lay silent. It was eerie, like everyone had simply vanished. The wreck fleet arrived at the first colony world expecting resistance. Instead, they found nothing. Empty streets. Blank communication channels. Not a single human remained. On every abandoned world, only one message played on repeat, broadcasting on all frequencies. Turn back. This is your only warning. Supreme Commander Thrak was insulted. They run and leave warnings, cowards? We'll chase them to their homeworld and teach them what it means to defy the Vrek Empire. But some of his officers were uneasy. One of them, a younger commander named Vrel, studied the empty colonies carefully. Commander, something is wrong. Look at the evacuation patterns. They're too organized, too complete. This wasn't panic. This was planned. Thrak dismissed him with a wave. They had time to run, so they ran. There's no mystery here, but Vrel couldn't shake his concern. He had studied military history, including humanity's admission to the Council. He knew there were gaps in the story, classified sections that even most humans didn't know about. Why had the Council been so eager to bring humanity in? Why had they given humans advanced technology so freely? He started searching through old databases looking for answers. What he found made his blood run cold, but by then it was too late. The Vrek fleet had already crossed the point of no return, diving deeper into human territory. Behind them, the empty colonies stayed silent. But in the shadows of gas giants and behind dark moons, things were moving. Old things. Terrible things. Things that humanity had built and then hidden away, hoping never to use again. The silence continued, and in that silence the trap was closing. The humans went quiet. Then the universe learned what true fear is, not part 2. The Watchers remember. Counselor Vex was old. Not old like most beings counted age, but truly ancient. His silicon-based body had existed for over 4,000 years. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had watched the Council grow from 5 species to 43. And now, sitting in his private chamber, he felt something he rarely experienced anymore. Fear. The human silence had lasted 6 days. 6 days without a single broadcast, without a single diplomatic contact, without a single trade message. It was as if humanity had simply ceased to exist. But Vex knew better. He had been there when humans first achieved faster-than-light travel. He had been in the Council when they debated what to do about Earth. He remembered what the others had forgotten. Access file Omega-7 read, Vex said to his computer terminal. Authorization Vex Alpha 01. The screen flickered. Security warnings appeared. This file had been sealed for 198 years. Only 3 counselors still alive had clearance to open it. Vex entered the final codes and the file opened. Inside were videos, reports, and tactical analyses. All of them were marked with the same header. First Contact Incident, Chilari Autonomous War Machines, Earth System 2621. Vex began to watch. Meanwhile, in the Great Library of Gemic Prime, historian Rattel was conducting his own investigation. He was a scholar, dedicated to understanding galactic history. The human silence troubled him. Species didn't just go quiet. There was always a reason, always a pattern. He searched through old records looking for anything unusual about humanity's entry into the Council. What he found were inconsistencies.
Gaps in the timeline.
Classified sections that made no sense. Humanity had been offered Council membership incredibly quickly. Most species had to prove themselves for decades. Humans had been invited after only 3 years. Why? Rattel muttered to himself. What were we afraid they would do if we didn't invite them? He dug deeper, following leads through archaeological records and ancient news broadcasts. Then he found it. A reference to something called the Chilari probes. He had never heard of them, but the mention was there, buried in a footnote about automated defense systems. Rattel spent 2 days tracking down every mention of the Chilari. What he pieced together chilled him. The Chilari had been a species that existed 3,000 years ago. They had built autonomous war machines programmed to eliminate any potential threats. Then the Chilari had died out, but their machines hadn't. The probes kept functioning, kept hunting, kept killing. And in 2621, a group of them had found Earth. Lieutenant Yuna worked in the intelligence division of the Human Defense Fleet. While the military prepared for war, her job was different. She was searching through humanity's own classified files, trying to understand what was happening. Admiral Heejin had given her special clearance and a simple instruction: find out what we're really capable of. Yuna started with military records from the 2620s. The official history said that humanity had been attacked by automated probes and had successfully defended themselves. But the official history was short, only a few paragraphs. There had to be more. She found a video file marked classified eyes-only ministerial level access. She shouldn't have been able to open it, but Admiral Heejin had given her the codes. Yuna took a deep breath and played the video. It showed Earth as it had looked 226 years ago. The planet was burning. Massive explosions covered entire continents. The Chilari probes, each one the size of a small city, hovered in orbit and fired weapons that turned mountains to glass. The death toll counter in the corner of the screen kept climbing. 100 million, 200 million, 400 million, 600 million. Yuna felt sick, but she kept watching. The human response was desperate. Ships that were barely spaceworthy, armed with primitive nuclear weapons, threw themselves at the probes. Most were destroyed instantly, but humans kept coming. They rammed the probes when they ran out of missiles. They used mining equipment as weapons. They strapped bombs to cargo haulers and flew them on suicide runs. And slowly, impossibly, they started winning. But winning wasn't enough. The video showed what happened after Earth was safe. Humanity didn't stop. They hunted the probes, every single one, across 40 light-years, through asteroid fields and nebulae, into the dark spaces where even probes tried to hide. It took 3 months. When it was over, not a single Chilari probe remained functional. The video ended with a meeting of human military leaders. A general spoke to the camera. We have learned a terrible lesson. The universe doesn't care if we're peaceful. It doesn't care if we're good. It only cares if we're strong enough to survive. We will never be caught unprepared again. Initiating Project Midnight. Yuna sat back, her mind racing. Project Midnight. That was the protocol Admiral Heejin had activated 6 days ago. Whatever humanity had built after the Chilari War, they were about to use it. Counselor Vex finished watching the same files. He sat in silence for a long time, his ancient mind processing what he had seen. Then he activated his communicator. Get me a channel to the wreck fleet. Emergency priority. Supreme Commander Thrak must be warned. The communications officer, a young Trill named Seska, looked worried. Counselor, the wreck have entered human space. They're not accepting outside communications. Try anyway, Vex insisted. Tell them this is a council-level emergency. Tell them to withdraw immediately. Seska tried for an hour. The wreck wouldn't listen. Finally, she got through to a junior officer on one of the outer ships. This is Counselor Vex of the Galactic Council. You must relay this message to your Supreme Commander. The humans are not what you think they are. You need to retreat before... The wreck officer cut the transmission. Historian Rattel had reached the same conclusion through his research. He compiled everything he had found into a report and sent it to the council. His final paragraph read, Humanity was not invited to the council because we liked them. They were invited because we feared what they would become if left alone. The Chilari probes taught them that mercy is weakness. We gave them technology, trade, and friendship, hoping it would change them. But we never asked the important question. What did they do with the 70 years before they met us? The report reached the council too late. The vote had already happened. The Vrek were already deep in human territory. On the Vrek flagship, Supreme Commander Thrak was starting to feel uneasy. 17 empty worlds. Not one human ship encountered. Not one shot fired. Just silence and abandoned colonies. His fleet was spread out now, searching multiple systems for the human homeworlds. Young Commander Vrel approached him carefully. Supreme Commander, I've been studying the humans. I found some disturbing information about their history. Thrak barely looked at him. Not now, Vrel. I'm busy planning our assault on Earth. Sir, please. The humans fought something before they joined the council, something that killed 600 million of them. And they didn't just survive. They completely destroyed— Enough! Thrak roared. I don't care what they fought before. They're not fighting it now. They're fighting us and they're losing. They ran away. Frel stepped back, but his concern remained. He returned to his station and continued researching. What he found in the next hour made him want to scream, but there was no one who would listen. The wreck fleet detected something on their sensors. Ships emerging from the dark side of a gas giant. Finally, the humans were going to fight. Thrak smiled. Ready all weapons. Prepare to engage, but the sensor officer looked confused. Commander, these readings don't match any known human ship design. They're old. Some of these power signatures are reading as pre-council technology, but that doesn't make sense. Why would they use old ships? Thrak didn't care. All ships advance and attack. Show these humans the price of defiance. The wreck armada moved forward. 3,000 warships against what sensors showed as maybe 200 human vessels. The math was overwhelmingly in wreck favor. Then the shooting started and the math stopped mattering. The humans went quiet. Then the universe learned what true fear is. Part 3. The unleashing commander Daehyun stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the wreck fleet approach. His vessel had no name that appeared in any registry. It had no identification beacon. On official records, it didn't exist. The ghost fleet had been waiting in the dark for 70 years, maintained in secret, crewed by volunteers who understood what they were protecting. All ships report ready, his tactical officer said quietly. The entire bridge crew spoke in whispers, an old habit from training. In space, silence was their greatest weapon. Daehyun studied the wreck formation on his screens. 3,000 ships spread across multiple star systems searching for human homeworlds. They had no idea they were already surrounded. The ghost fleet numbered only 800 vessels, but numbers weren't the point. These ships had been built for one purpose: to kill quickly, efficiently, and without mercy. Execute Phase 1, Daehyun ordered. Let them see what humanity keeps in the dark. The first wreck ships died without ever knowing what hit them. Kinetic missiles, fired from beyond sensor range, struck at 70% of light speed. The impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. Ships didn't just explode, they vaporized. 20 wreck vessels vanished in the first 30 seconds. Supreme Commander Thrak screamed orders. Return fire, find the enemy positions. But there was nothing to shoot at. Human stealth technology, developed during 70 years of paranoid preparation, made their ships invisible to conventional sensors. The wreck were fighting ghosts that they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't predict. Captain Minho watched from the wandering star, positioned 3 light hours away. His ship wasn't a warship. He was there to observe, to record, and if necessary, to bear witness. Beside him, Dr. Jiwoo monitored the battle through quantum-linked displays. This isn't war, Jiwoo said softly. This is extermination, Minho didn't argue. He had read the same military files she had. After the Chilari probes, humanity had asked themselves a simple question. What if it happens again? What if another threat comes and we're not ready? So they built the Ghost Fleet. They created weapons that violated council treaties. They prepared for a war they hoped would never come. Now that war was here, and humanity was showing the galaxy what preparation really meant, the wreck fleet tried to regroup. They pulled their ships together into a defensive formation, thinking that numbers and concentrated firepower would save them. It was sound military strategy against any conventional enemy. But humans weren't conventional anymore. The asteroid struck the center of the wreck formation. It wasn't a natural asteroid. It had been positioned years ago, equipped with hidden engines and a fusion drive. Humanity had weaponized entire celestial bodies. The rock, massing billions of tons, had been accelerated for weeks in preparation for this moment. When it hit the densest part of the wreck fleet, 200 ships were destroyed by debris alone. Phase 2, Admiral Heejin commanded from Earth. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair tightly. She had spent 30 years hoping she would never have to give these orders. Now that the time had come, she felt only a cold certainty. Humanity would survive. Everything else was secondary. Throughout human space, weapon systems that had been hidden for decades activated. Ice moons that appeared natural on all scans suddenly revealed themselves as massive fusion bomb arrays. Orbital platforms that looked like old abandoned stations began targeting enemy ships with precision that shouldn't be possible. Even the stars themselves became weapons as humans triggered carefully planned gravitational effects that created solar flares in exact directions. The Vrek Supreme Commander finally understood. This wasn't an invasion. It was a trap. The empty colonies, the silence, the apparent retreat, all of it had been designed to lure the Vrek deep into human territory, where every system had been transformed into a killing field. Retreat, Thrak ordered. All ships withdraw immediately. But retreating was harder than advancing. The human weapons followed them. Ships that tried to jump to faster-than-light speeds found their drives sabotaged by weapons that targeted specific engine frequencies. Vessels that tried to hide in asteroid fields discovered that the asteroids themselves were mined. There was no safe place, no escape route that humans hadn't predicted and prepared for. Commander Vrel, the young officer who had tried to warn Thrak, now commanded his own ship after his superior officer was killed. He watched in horror as the fleet died around him. 3,000 ships, the pride of the Vrek Empire, were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they had dismissed as weak. He accessed his ship's database and pulled up everything he could find about human history. There had to be something, some clue to explain this. What he found was a human phrase translated into Vrek language. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The humans had learned. After the Chilari probes killed 600 million of them, they had learned the cruelest lesson in the universe. Being peaceful doesn't protect you. Being moral doesn't save you. Only strength matters when survival is at stake. Dr. Jiwoo recorded her observations in a personal log. She knew these recordings might be all that remained to explain humanity's actions. We became what we needed to survive, she dictated quietly. After the Chilari attack, we realized that the galaxy is not kind. It's not fair. Species that survive do so because they're strong enough, or because someone stronger protects them. We had no protector. We had only ourselves. So we built these weapons. We created this fleet. We prepared for the day when being peaceful wasn't enough. She paused, watching another group of wreck ships die on her screen. I hope future generations understand. We didn't want this. We wanted to explore, to learn, to make friends among the stars. But the universe taught us that friendship means nothing when someone decides to take what's yours. So we became guardians. Guardians of ourselves first because no one else will do it. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the Vrek fleet had been reduced from 3,000 ships to 83 survivors. They clustered together in one star system, desperately broadcasting surrender requests on every channel, but humanity's communication channels remained silent. Commander Daehyun received his orders and read them carefully. He called his senior officers together. Command wants the survivors to escape. We're to open a corridor and let them return home. His weapons officer looked shocked. Sir, we have them trapped. We could end this completely. Why let them go? Daehyun smiled grimly. Because dead enemies can't tell stories. Those 83 ships are going to return to Vrek space with footage, with sensor logs, with survivor testimonies. They're going to tell everyone what happened here. And the galaxy is going to learn what it means to threaten humanity. The corridor opened. The surviving Vrek ships fled through it, too terrified to question their good fortune. As they jumped to faster-than-light speeds, a single message appeared on their communication systems. One word: witnesses. Supreme Commander Thrak sat in his command chair, staring at nothing. His fleet was destroyed. His reputation was ruined. But worse than that, he understood now what he had done. He had attacked a species that had spent 70 years preparing for this exact scenario. He had dismissed them as weak because they talked and traded instead of conquering. But talking hadn't been weakness. It had been preference. Humans had chosen peace because they wanted it, not because they couldn't do anything else. And when peace was taken away, they had simply stopped choosing it. Back in human space, Captain Minho prepared his report. He included everything he had witnessed, every tactical detail, every weapon used. He ended with a personal note. Today we showed the galaxy our teeth. We proved we're not prey, but I wonder what price we'll pay for this proof. Will they respect us now, or will they fear us? And if they fear us, what does that make us? Admiral Heejin read his report and had no answers. She authorized the stand-down of the Ghost Fleet and watched as the ships began returning to their hidden bases. The weapons were silent again, but everyone knew they were there now. The secret was out. On Earth, Ambassador Taehyung prepared to return to the Council. He would face the same species who had voted to give away human worlds. He would sit across from them and negotiate humanity's place in the galaxy. But everything had changed. Humanity had shown what they were capable of, and there was no taking it back. The silence was over. Now came the reckoning. The humans went quiet. Then the universe learned what true fear is. Part 4. The Reckoning. The council chamber had never been this quiet. 43 species sent their representatives, and every single one of them sat in absolute silence as the footage played on the central display. The wreck survivors had shared everything: sensor recordings, helmet camera footage, tactical analyses. The images showed ships vaporizing, asteroids becoming weapons, and an entire fleet dying in 14 hours. Ambassador Tai-hyung stood in the center of the chamber and waited. He had been back on Earth for 3 days, meeting with President Jae-min-oh and military leadership. Now he was here to deliver humanity's message. But first he let them watch. Let them see what humanity had done. Counselor Vex was the first to speak when the footage ended. His ancient voice was heavy with emotion. Ambassador Taehyung, your species has violated 17 council treaties regarding weapons development, strategic deception, and proportional response. Under normal circumstances, this would result in expulsion from the council and potential military sanctions. Taehyung nodded slowly. Under normal circumstances, Counselor, my species wouldn't have been voted away like trade goods. But here we are. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded humanity be punished. Others insisted the wreck had brought this on themselves. A few said nothing, too shocked to form coherent thoughts. Through it all, Taehyung stood silent and calm. On Earth, President Jae-min-oh watched the council session through a quantum-linked feed. Around him, his advisors debated humanity's next steps. Admiral Heejin wanted to maintain the current military posture. We've shown them what we can do. Now we make it clear that we'll do it again if necessary. But Dr. Jiwoo disagreed. If we stay in this position, we become the thing we fought against. We become conquerors by reputation, even if we never conquer anything. Is that really what we want? President Jaemin rubbed his temples. He was 58 years old and had led humanity for 10 years. In all that time, he had worked for peace, for integration with the galactic community. Now that community had betrayed them, and his people had responded with overwhelming violence. What came next would define humanity for generations. What if we become the protectors? He said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. We have the weapons. We have the capability. What if we offer them to the council? Not as a threat, but as a shield? Admiral Hyejin looked skeptical. You want to trust them again? After they voted to give away our worlds? No, Jaemin said. I want them to need us. There's a difference. Back in the council chamber, Taehyung raised his hand for silence. Slowly, the arguments died down. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the room. Humanity has prepared a proposal. You may accept it or reject it, but these are our terms. First, the Galactic Council will never again vote to surrender any member species territory. What happened to us can never happen to anyone else. Second, humanity will dismantle 80% of our ghost fleet. We will reduce our military capability as a gesture of good faith. Third, in exchange for this reduction, humanity will become the Council's military arm. We will defend any member species that faces external threats. We will be the shield that protects all of you. The chamber exploded in reaction. Some species saw the wisdom in it. Others saw a trap. A Ferrix diplomat stood up. You're asking us to make you our masters. To depend on you for protection. How is that different from conquest? Taehyung met his gaze calmly. Because you can say no. Because we're voluntarily reducing our forces. Because the remaining 20% of our ghost fleet will protect all of you. Not just us. We're not asking to rule. We're asking to serve. But we'll serve on our terms because we've learned that depending on others to protect us is a mistake we won't make again. Lieutenant Yuna worked in intelligence on Earth, monitoring reactions across the galaxy. The responses were mixed. 47 systems that had been conquered by the wreck were petitioning to join human protection immediately. 17 species expressed support for humanity's proposal, but 6 species, led by the Krallen Coalition, were mobilizing their own fleets. She brought this information to Admiral Hyejin personally. Ma'am, we have a problem. The Krallen CR offered to reduce forces as weakness. They're planning a coordinated strike while we're vulnerable. Hyejin studied the intelligence reports carefully. The Kralin coalition consisted of 6 species, each with moderate military strength. Together, they fielded about 800 ships. Normally, that wouldn't be enough to threaten humanity, but if they struck during the dismantling process while human forces were divided and ships were being decommissioned, they might succeed. Do we have a time frame? Heejin asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4. They're still organizing. Heejin made a decision. Inform Captain Minho. Give him full tactical briefing. His ship is close to Kralin space. He needs to know what's coming. Captain Minho received the intelligence update while his ship was docked at a human station for repairs. He read it 3 times, then called his senior staff together. Dr. Jiwoo joined them via quantum link from Earth. We have the shot, his weapons officer said. We know where they're staging. We could jump in, launch a preemptive strike, and eliminate the threat before they ever organize. Minho stared at the tactical display. The weapons officer was right. They had the position, the firepower, and the justification. Any military commander would approve the strike. It was the logical choice. But Minho thought about the last 3 weeks. He thought about the wreck fleet dying in 14 hours. He thought about humanity showing its teeth to the galaxy. If they struck first now, what would that prove? That they were still the monster in the dark, only pretending to be civilized? No, he said finally. We're not going to stop them the easy way. His staff looked confused. Dr. Jiwoo, watching remotely, smiled slightly. She understood. Minho opened a communications channel, not to the Kralin coalition directly, but to the entire galaxy. Every ship, every station, every homeworld with a receiver would get this message. This is Captain Minho of the United Human Systems. To the Kralin coalition and any other species planning military action against humanity, we see you. We know what you're planning. We know where your ships are staging, what weapons you're carrying, and what your tactical objectives are. He paused, letting that sink in. Across the galaxy, military commanders felt ice in their veins. Humanity knew. Of course they knew. They had been watching the entire time. We could stop you before you begin, Minho continued. We could eliminate your fleets with weapons you never saw coming, from ranges you can't defend against. We could do to you what we did to the wreck, but we're not going to. In the Kralin Coalition Command Center, 6 different species military leaders looked at each other in confusion. Was this a bluff, a trick? Instead, Minho said, we're going to do something else. We're going to teach you. President Jamin watched Minho's broadcast with approval. This was the path he had hoped for. Not dominance through fear, but security through shared strength. It was risky. It was unprecedented. But it was the only way forward that didn't turn humanity into the very thing they had fought to protect themselves from. The plan was simple, but radical. Human military advisors would be sent to every council species that wanted them. They would teach tactics, strategy, and defensive warfare. Humanity would share some of their technology, not the devastating weapons of the Ghost Fleet, but the defensive systems, the sensor networks, the coordination protocols that made their military so effective. If they attack, Jamin explained to his council, they'll be attacking a prepared galaxy. Not just us, but everyone. And they'll fail not because humanity stopped them alone, but because we taught the galaxy to defend itself. Dr. Jiwoo was put in charge of the program. She assembled a team of military instructors and began preparing training modules. The response from council species was overwhelming. 32 species immediately requested human military advisors. Even some who had voted against humanity in the original council vote now asked for help. Admiral Heejin watched the program begin with mixed feelings. Part of her still wanted the security of overwhelming military advantage. But another part, the part that had grown tired of maintaining the Ghost Fleet in secret for 30 years, felt relief. Maybe there was another way. Maybe strength didn't have to mean isolation. 3 weeks later, when the Kralin Coalition launched their attack, they found something unexpected. They struck at a human colony world with 200 warships, expecting to find minimal defenses. Instead, they encountered a joint defense force. 30 different species, coordinated by human tactical doctrine, equipped with human sensor technology, and defending as a united front. The Kralin fleet was defeated in 6 hours, not by humanity alone, but by a galaxy that had learned to fight together. Human ships participated, but they were only part of the defense. The real lesson was clear. Attacking one council member meant attacking them all, and now they all knew how to defend themselves. In the aftermath, Ambassador Taehyung presented humanity's proposal to the council again. This time the vote was unanimous. The Sentinel LD reduce its military forces as promised, but would maintain a guardian role. The Ghost Fleet would be divided, with ships assigned to protect different regions of. The humans went quiet. Then the universe learned what true fear is. Part 5. The new galaxy. 6 months had passed since the Sentinel Accord was signed. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the Wandering Star and looked at his crew. They weren't all human anymore. His navigator was a Trill named Kessa. His chief engineer was a Feryx called Drum. 12 different species worked together on his ship, learning from each other, protecting each other. They were 3 light years beyond Council space, exploring a region that had never been surveyed. This was what humanity had always wanted. Not war, not conquest, just the freedom to explore the universe and see what was out there. Captain, we're detecting an unusual energy signature, Kessa reported. It's coming from the edge of this system. Minho moved to her station. On the screen, he saw readings that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. Could be automated technology. Could be another species. Everyone stay alert. We're here to observe, not interfere. This was humanity's new role. They explored the dangerous places, the unknown regions where threats might lurk. They were the early warning system for the entire council. If something dangerous was out there, humans would find it first and give everyone else time to prepare. On Earth, Admiral Heejin oversaw the decommissioning of the Ghost Fleet. 80% of the ships were being dismantled. Their weapon systems cataloged and stored. Some would be converted into civilian vessels. Others would have their most advanced technology removed and sealed away, kept only as a reminder of what humanity had built. She walked through the shipyard where the Dark Sentinel was being taken apart. This vessel had been her flagship during the Wreck War. Now it was being reduced to components. A young technician approached her nervously. "Admiral, it feels wrong. These ships kept us safe." Yejin nodded. "They did. But keeping us safe meant keeping us separate. These ships were built in fear, maintained in secret, and used in desperation. We're choosing something different now. We're choosing trust." The technician looked unconvinced.
Hyejin couldn't blame him.
She wasn't entirely sure herself. But she had been a warrior for 40 years, and she understood that sometimes the bravest thing wasn't fighting. Sometimes it was choosing not to. Dr. Jiwoo stood in a classroom on the council homeworld, teaching a mixed group of species about military strategy. Her students included 2 Wreck officers, survivors from the war. At first, she hadn't wanted to teach them. They had been enemies, but President Jamin had insisted. "If we only teach our friends, we create sides," he had said. "If we teach everyone, we create community." Today's lesson was about defensive positioning. One of the Wreck officers raised his hand. "Dr. Jiwoo, why are you teaching us this? We attacked you. We tried to take your worlds. Why help us defend ourselves?" Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. "Because what happened between us was war, not hatred. You made a mistake by attacking us. We made a mistake by responding with total destruction. Both of us learned lessons. Now we're choosing to learn from each other instead." The Wreck officer nodded slowly. "My people call you the patient storm now. Quiet until provoked, then unstoppable. They fear you." "I know," Jiwoo said, "but fear is a poor foundation for peace. Eventually, fear turns to resentment, and resentment turns to war. So we're building something better. We're building understanding." Ambassador Taehyung walked through the council chambers with a different feeling than before. 6 months ago, he had stood here and threatened the galaxy with humanity's military might. Now he walked as an equal, respected not because of weapons, but because of actions. Counselor Vex approached him. The ancient being moved slowly, but his mind was still sharp. "Ambassador, I want to show you something. It's in the restricted archives." Taehyung followed him to a private chamber. Vex activated a display showing military plans, deployment scenarios, and weapons specifications. These were our contingencies if humanity chose conquest instead of cooperation. 17 different plans to contain or eliminate your species if necessary. Taehyung felt cold. "You were ready to kill us all?" "We were ready to try," Vex corrected. Whether we would have succeeded is another question. "But yes, we had plans. Every apex species that joins the council is evaluated for potential threat. You humans were rated as extremely high risk." "Why are you showing me this?" Vex's eyes shimmered. "Because these plans are being deleted. all 17 of them. The council voted unanimously to destroy them. For the first time in 4,000 years, we're choosing to trust a powerful species completely. That's what you've earned by choosing restraint over domination. Taehyung felt the weight of that decision. Humanity had been one choice away from galactic extinction, and they hadn't even known it. The fact that they had chosen correctly almost by accident was terrifying. Young cadet Yerin Han graduated from the Human Defense Academy at the top of her class. She was 19 years old and had never known war. To her, the Vrek conflict was history, something she studied but hadn't experienced. Now she stood on the bridge of her first assignment, a patrol ship stationed near the Kralin border. Her captain was an older man named Sung-ho, a veteran of the Ghost Fleet. He watched her with a knowing smile. "Excited, cadet?" "Yes, sir. I've trained my whole life for this." "What did they teach you about our role?" Yerin answered promptly. "We're guardians. We protect the council from external threats and maintain peace through strength and vigilance." Sung-ho nodded. "That's the official answer. Want to know the real answer?" He gestured at the view screen showing peaceful space, ships moving in trade routes, no weapons firing anywhere. "Our real job is to be so good at what we do that we never have to do it. Every day we're out here not fighting is a successful day. Every threat we deter without firing a shot is a victory. The Ghost Fleet won a war in 14 hours, but the real success would have been never needing to use it at all." Yerin thought about that. It was different from what she expected, but it made sense. Strength wasn't about winning fights. It was about preventing them. Captain Minho's ship had investigated the energy signature and found it was an abandoned space station from an extinct civilization. Nothing dangerous, just another mystery for the archives. As his ship prepared to move on, he recorded his daily log. "We've been exploring for 6 months now with a mixed crew. At first I worried about how well everyone would work together. But I've learned something. When you're 3 light years from help, species doesn't matter. What matters is competence, trust, and shared purpose. My crew would die for each other. And they come from 12 different worlds. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not weapons, not tactics, but the ability to build teams from diversity." On Earth, President Jae met with his cabinet to discuss the next phase of the Sentinel Accord. Reports were positive from every sector. Trade was up. Conflicts were down. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to work together through human-led joint defense exercises. "We have a proposal from the Vrek Empire," his foreign minister announced. "They want to formally apologize for their invasion and request full participation in the Sentinel program." The room fell silent. The Vrek had lost 2,917 ships in the war. They had been humiliated, defeated, and exposed as weaker than they claimed. Now they wanted to join the very system that had destroyed them. President Jamin made his decision quickly. "Except send them a full training team, and make sure some of the instructors are veterans from the war. They need to learn from the people they fought." "Mr. President," Admiral Hijin said carefully, "some people won't like this. Families who lost loved ones in the war. They'll see it as betraying the dead." "I know," Jamin said quietly, "but the dead deserve better than endless cycles of revenge. They deserve a galaxy where what happened to them doesn't happen to anyone else. That's the only memorial worth building." Counselor Vex watched from his private chamber as the galaxy transformed. In his 4,000 years of life, he had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. He had watched the council grow and evolve. But he had never seen anything like what humanity was creating. They had the power to dominate but chose to teach. They had the weapons to conquer but chose to protect. They had earned fear but were building respect instead. It was unprecedented, and Vex found himself feeling something he rarely experienced anymore: hope. He recorded a personal message for his successor, whoever would take his place in the centuries to come. "If you remember nothing else I tell you, remember this. Humanity taught us that true strength isn't the capacity to destroy. It's the wisdom to choose not to. We offered them advanced technology, hoping it would change them from warriors to explorers. Instead, they taught us that you can be both. You can be capable of great violence and great kindness. The key is knowing when to use which." The wandering star received new orders. Another unexplored region, another potential threat to evaluate. Captain Minho gathered his mixed species crew and uncharted territory. "There might be dangers. There might be nothing. But whatever we find together. Questions?" Kessa, the Trill navigator, raised her hand. Captain, if we do find a threat, what's our primary objective? Minho smiled. Same as always. Understand it first, communicate if possible. And if we have to fight, we make sure no one else ever has to fig.